So, I completed the last book in the Cthulhu Casebooks series, or rather, the last book in the initial trilogy of books in the Cthulhu Casebook series. And how was it? Now that I've completed it, well, in a word, it was very entertaining. And yes, let's start with detective review, shall we? So I look at three things in detective review, and that's number one. If a story has a sort of thinking Sherlock Holmes, or whether it contains action hero Sherlock Holmes. And second, if there's some payoff from paying attention to what's going on, is it possible to determine who the villain is, or what the outcome of the story is? And thirdly, is there some detecting going on? And if you start at the top, this is definitely a story with action hero Sherlock Holmes. There's of course some detecting also going on, but this is mainly an adventure story starring Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, set in the world of Lovecraft. And as I noted with regards to point number two, yes, there is some detecting going on. I think Sherlock Holmes pulls out his magnification glass at least one occasion, or at least two occasions, I think. So there is some detecting going on. But as noted, this is not the sort of main focus of this story. And as for the last point, well, this is the last book in the initial trilogy of books by James Lovegrove in the Cthulhu Casebook series, and it concludes the storylines that are started in the two first books. And as such, well, there isn't really much sort of confusion with regards to who the main villain is. So you don't get the sort of payoff as you would perhaps get from a whodunit story. But there is some aspects of the story that you might pick up some clues or hints as to what will happen in the final part of the book. So, to comment on the book more generally, what did I think of it? Yes, as I noted initially, I thought this was a very entertaining book. I'm not going to go into any spoilers in this review, but I will talk a little bit about the general structure of the book and how it fits into the trilogy as a whole. And there are three books in this series. I have videos discussing the first two also. The first is set in 1880, so you have a young Sherlock Holmes. The second is set in 1895, so you have a more experienced Sherlock Holmes. And the last one, this one, is set in 1910, and this is after he has sort of officially retired. But it is still a very much energetic Sherlock Holmes. And I thought, if you look at the book by itself, it was very entertaining, very much a fun story. It as opposed to first two books, sort of gets going at once, and it is exclusively about Sherlock Holmes. So the first book, as one might expect, had some parts where you have the setup of the world and both with regards to Sherlock Holmes as pertains to this book series, and sort of introduction to the world of Lovecraft as it appears in these books starring Sherlock Holmes. And the second book, it was sort of divided in two parts, where one part was the sort of adventures of Sherlock Holmes and Watson, while the second part was sort of set in the United States and concerned characters that showed up in the part with Watson and Sherlock Holmes, but sort of provided a backstory for the later events in the book. But this one, the third book, it exclusively concerns the story of Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and it finishes. It sort of this is nice. By itself, it is entertaining, but it also provides a sort of nice closure to the storylines that are set up in the first two books. So it's a trilogy of books that provides a full story that concludes with the third book, and I thought it worked very well as a standalone book and as a part of the trilogy. So I really enjoyed it. Especially the end is very very entertaining. Again, it's not really a horror, so it's not scary at any point. But of course, there's a sort of tension, slightly scary atmosphere, but it's not really a horrifying book in any way, but very much entertaining. And well, it sort of even has a amusing epilogue at the end. So yes, very nice. And there is, however, a fourth book that's coming out this fall. I haven't really looked into how it is supposed to fit into this trilogy. There's always sort of the possibility of placing it after the three books or somewhere in the middle, but we will have to see what happens. I have it ordered from an online store and will get it hopefully eventually. I thought this was very entertaining at times, of course. You get a feeling that this book or this storyline it could have worked just as well with Indiana Jones or a similar character. So it's very much an adventure story, and this last book, it's set in 1910, so you have the sort of lead up to the First World War also, and I thought that worked very well. You have sort of an added dimension since you have this potential for conflict with other European powers. And I thought that that was a nice addition. So you have not only this sort of this threat from the stars or from another dimension, you also have this build-up due to the coming war between European nations. So that sort of adds a very very nice aspects to the book. I thought that really worked well. So there's something about time period, perhaps. You have this classical Lovecraft sort of investigator that's going out and fighting against these mythos-related powers and the earthly minions. And this book sort of fits well with that type of story. It's not unlike a story that could have been played out in a role-playing game set in the Lovecraft universe. So yes, it's very entertaining. And as I mentioned, Indiana Jones, I think that's also a character that could work well with Lovecraft mythos. It's not really that different, is it? When you compare it to sort of what he's doing in the 3 movies. He's going after these religious artifacts, and there are supernatural powers that are at work there. And this is sort of something similar. You have otherworldly powers and their worshippers. So I think Indiana Jones is also a character that could work well in the Lovecraft universe. Of course, we'll have to wait until Indiana Jones is no longer held under copyright, or rather, you have to wait until he is in the public domain, and who knows when that will be. Probably not in my lifetime, unfortunately. But yes, this combination of Sherlock Holmes and Cthulhu and friends, it works. It works quite well, I thought. There's another aspect to this story that I thought of while reading it and sort of getting towards the end, and that's the sort of observation that this would probably not be a story that would have been possible to write at the same time that the books by Lovecraft were originally published. And I don't mean sort of copyright, due to copyright limitations, but rather that, especially since the Lovecraft stories ended up in the public domain, that the characters that Lovecraft created have sort of become a very much popular part of popular culture, and I think perhaps they are seen in a somewhat different way than they were originally when the books were first published. Of course, I wasn't alive at that time, so I can't say for sure, but I would think that characters like Cthulhu and Nyarlathotep and all the other gods were perhaps seen as more scary and terrifying at that time, while if you look at sort of today, I can probably purchase a Cthulhu plush from from eBay or some other site if I wanted to. And there are several games. I played one where you are Cthulhu, who plays Cthulhu. I think it was Cthulhu Saves the World or something similar. And essentially, he is the hero. So the characters that appear in the books by Lovecraft, they have sort of developed in an interesting way as part of popular culture. And this book is, to a certain extent, or it's clearly a story that has been written in the context of the Cthulhu mythos as it is sort of seen today, and not when the books were originally written. I don't say that as a criticism, but rather that there are some aspects of the story that perhaps would have worked less well originally than they do today. So if you read the book, you'll probably see what I'm referring to. So, but yes, very much enjoyable. I would recommend this. If you have read the 2 first books, I would of course recommend this. And if you haven't read the first 2 books, well, I would perhaps recommend reading the first books in order to be able to read this one. I think it's if you're interested in sort of the material, this is, in my opinion, the best book in the series, and it's very entertaining. So if you have no sort of interest in Lovecraft mythos, then perhaps not so entertaining. But if you are familiar with the stories and have read the original tales by Lovecraft, well, then you might find this very entertaining. So I'm not sure how well this book works by itself. If you're not interested in reading the first 2 books, it could be there are some characters from the first book, of course, and some setup that you will be missing, but it could be that it will still be entertaining. So that's sort of conditional recommendation, perhaps. But overall, yes, this was very much a pleasant experience. So I very much enjoyed it, as I've said many times already. But yes, very nice. I wonder if the next book in this series will be able to top this one. I sort of doubt it. This book provided a very climatic ending to both the book and the trilogy. So there could be that there are some loose threads, of course, but this book sort of at least appeared to provide very much closure for the stories and the characters that appear in this trilogy. So, but we'll have to see what the author thinks of next. As for me, I have a couple of more books from the same author that I have purchased and that I'll probably read next. I don't think they are sort of necessarily supernatural, and then they are not related to Lovecraft, but they sort of also feature Sherlock Holmes and some of the characters that were famous and are now in the public domain, I think. So I might put up a video on those also when I get so far. And of course, later this year, when the 4th book in this Cthulhu Casebooks series comes out, I'll have a look at that one too. And then I'll probably go on to another Sherlock Holmes versus Lovecraft Mythos series. So there are sort of several of these, so I look forward to reading that one also. I think perhaps this series will be somewhat unique when it comes to how it has handled material of Sherlock Holmes in the Lovecraft universe. I think perhaps other authors will have chosen different approaches, sort of more straightforward approaches, but of course I haven't read any of the other books yet, so I cannot say for certain. But that was, I think, all I wanted to say on this book. So yes, recommend for me if you are interested in Cthulhu and Sherlock Holmes. So yes, that was it, I think. So yes, goodbye.